Are you wondering how you can learn more about food? Well, you're in the right place. This is the Chakula Podcast, brought to you by the Root to Food Initiative, a show that celebrates authentic Kenyan dishes and serves you hot conversations about food in Kenya from an economic, social, and political lens. Sema nasi kwenye social media at Root to Food on Instagram, at Root to Food on Twitter, and Root to Food on Facebook. And now, here's your host, Felistas Mwalia.
Hi and welcome to another episode of the Chakula Podcast. Seeds are the very basis of our food systems. We can't control our food systems if we don't have control of our seeds. Today I'm joined by Noel Templer, who's a seed, food, and market systems expert. Karibu sana, Noel.
Asante. Thank you, Feli.
Do you want to share with us more on who Noel is?
Sure. Noel is a farmer, first of all. Noel loves working with farmers because farmers do the bulk of what we call impactful work. They try to feed the world each day, each single day. And so my working with them is a little contribution to the betterment of the world, because they make sure every day there's food on that table for everyone to eat. Apart from that, I try to do a little level of training. Mm-hmm. So I train a lot different organizations on matters food systems and market systems, just to ensure that everyone who is a decision maker or a change maker knows what to do to make sure that food security is guaranteed.
Yeah, that's a very interesting portfolio. But today's conversation will focus so much more on your seeds expertise. Mm-hmm. So I think it will be nice if we start off by you defining to us what a seed is, what is a good seed, and what parameters should we look at when looking for good seeds?
Yeah, you ask a very important question, because the common man would want to see seed as something that goes into soil. And that's where the definition starts. So seed is something that, is the genesis of life for a crop. And when we are planting a seed, we are simply taking life and putting it into soil to generate life. So seed in the most basic statement is what you plant to get a plant or a crop. And when we are in our space, the experts or the specialists, what we say seed is what the farmer will take either from an agro dealer shop or from their own usual savings as farmers, and then, subject it to a growth environment and then harvest a produce at the end of the day. When we want to go deeper into the definition of seed, then we will want to specify that there are two levels. Mm-hmm. So there's one type of seed that we call open pollinated variety or a heirloom variety. And this could be any seed that a farmer has been able to store and keep over time. And there are exchanges. I know your grandma or your mom would occasionally put some cob of maize in the kitchen and let it, acquire some seed, because they select this as a farmer and plant it the next season. Then there's another category of farmers who will go to the agro dealer shop and buy seed. Mm. And this is seed that has been packed. Now that is the hybrid seed or the certified seed. And then there's the other category of people who would then receive this seed either bought by counties or NGO programs that are doing seed work, and then it's delivered to them.
Noel, you've actually mentioned something very interesting about farmers storing their own seeds to use the next season, and then farmers who go to the agrovets to buy hybrid seeds. Mm-hmm. What's really the difference between the both of them?
So the difference is really in terms of the handling, how it's handled. So if it's commercial seed or certified seed, so to speak, they'll have to go to the agrovet and get it there. The agrovet is an outlet that has been formally registered by the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Services, KEFIS, to be the reseller of seed that comes from the seed company. So this is seed that has gone through a scientific process of management. So, like for a hybrid, we have two parents. We have a male and a female maize. They are crossed together, and this results into a hybrid. Mm-hmm. Then the hybrid has to be certified by following a set of procedures that has been laid out by KEFIS through the regulations. Mm-hmm. Then after that, it's packed, and then it is availed to the agro dealer shop, which is, like I said, a regulated space. And then the farmer can go and buy it there. But we have this other category of seed that our farmers would basically select from what they harvest and then keep some to plant the next season. They could do this, or they could go to the market where we have people who are selling grain. So there's a difference between grain and seed. Grain you will take and go and eat from the market. But out of that grain, there are specialist traders who have selected the good-looking grain, treated them and kept them aside, and they sell it to the farmers close to the harvest. That is the informal system of seed, which, within the Kenyan regulation is not allowed. But then, that is what most farmers actually use.
So basically, there are no any mechanisms to ensure transparency, quality of the farmer managed.
Not quite. I think farmers by themselves, and here is where the trust bit comes in. Neighbors who are farmers and have access to that seed can share between each other. But by law, you cannot say that you are selling seed. By the farmer definition and category of responses, they will say, I gave my neighbor seed, and it will grow. Because, like I said, they try as much as possible to manage the quality. They can store them in good places. They can keep them in airtight containers in ways that do not allow the pests to attack them or disease to reach them. So those are the differences between the two kind of seed, if you ask me. But if you go to the ground, at the end of the day, what we are looking at when we are saying this is seed, we want to look at its quality in terms of, is it able to grow? What is the germination percentage? If I plant 10 seeds, will all of them grow? Or will 9 out of 10 grow? Or will 2 out of 10 grow? So that's the quality, the attribute of it being able to germinate. Then there's the bit where it is not diseased. So it is disease-free, because seed can carry disease. And if seed is diseased and the farmer plants it, then there's no guarantee that it will grow. So we are looking at what is the physiological quality of the seed, what is the outlook of the seed, the natural look. If you look at it, is it diseased? Is it deformed? Is it in a good way able to grow? And then the other bit that we tend to focus on is, if I plant this seed, then is it able to be true to type? So if I plant beans, I expect to harvest beans or beans to come out. Sometimes you have farmers who have taken vegetable, or even, for example, coriander, dania. They've taken dania from the agrovet shop. They went to plant it, and then what came out was, for example, parsley, which is a different thing.
That happens.
So that happens because the seeds are almost the same. If I go and plant a bean variety that is Muitemania, I expect to see Muitemania. I don't want to go and plant Muitemania and I get yellow bean. It's called Kadeka, the cat bean one. So you expect that when you're planting good seed, you get true to type. If I plant maize, I want to harvest maize. And if it's maize that is, if it's the white maize, let it be white, not yellow.
Can we say that that's one of the challenges, not really a challenges, but one of the things, I don't have a better word, which comes with commercialized, industrialized seed systems?
Not quite. I mean, like I said, the commercialized aspect is really monitored. There are steps and processes to be followed, which if not followed, there are penalties to that effect. But they say no human is immune to error. Sometimes machines fail when they're packing and they mix up things. Sometimes people are not able to harvest the seed because that seed is produced through a process. And sometimes there's mixing that happens. The same case, if it's a farmer-managed system, me as Noel planting beans, I might have good beans, and you loved it as a farmer who is my neighbor. And when I gave it to you, maybe I gave you a cup of beans, and then you go and plant it. Sometimes it might not give you that, what you expect, like the way it did on my farm. So there are variabilities to this end. But to answer your question, I feel like farmer-managed systems are really built on trust. They also really rely on goodwill from neighbors and families and friends. Because if I'm buying from a market and the trader decides to sell me the right seed, we call it potential seed or farmer seed, it will still do well.
And are they selling the seeds illegally?
Well, you can say illegally if we are considering how the regulations in Kenya stipulate. But if you ask me as a person who deals with farmers, I will say it's not illegal because they have not labeled it as seed. It's only that the farmers prefer it. It's cheaper and they're able to access it, and maybe it does well in the places they do live. And I'll tell you, Feli, across Kenya, not every farmer has an access to an agro dealer shop. Some of them are living in far-flung areas. We call them the last mile. They don't have access to the agro dealer unless they come to that town, which might be 60 kilometers away. So what they rely on is, local arrangements. They have people around who can store seed. They have people around who can maybe share some seed.
Yeah.
There are seed programs that maybe can share seed with them. So we can't term it illegal as a blanket statement.
Yeah.
But if Kenya, for example, was a formally structured seed system, then that would be considered illegal because it will be going against the set procedure.
Yeah, and are there any challenges when it comes to application of farmer managed systems?
So the challenges here would be twofold. One would be when I want to tell Feli that I'm giving you beans and these beans will do well, and then they don't do well. So that's a challenge because the trust between you and I as farmers then gets eroded.
Yeah.
Because you've told me it will do well, but it didn't do well. Then the second one would be the knowledge aspect. If we don't know how to apply good agronomic practices, however good the seed is, then we are at a loss. So farmers will say, oh, I got very good seed, but I planted them, but they didn't do well. But then if you follow closely, you will realize maybe whatever good agronomic practices that ought to have been applied were not applied. So some of these are the challenges that would exist. And the other one, which I feel is actually a bigger problem, is if me as a farmer, I do not know how to save seed or to store seed, then it becomes a disadvantage because whatever I select from my harvest to go and plant then does not do well, or it's eaten away by, rodents or things like that. And then at the end of the day, I have no seed and I can plant, and food insecurity then jumps in. So basically, you would want a farmer managed system to apply a lot of processes, but they might not be the same as the formal system, which has, someone always with the cane at the back looking to make sure that you have followed every procedure. But in terms of that knowledge acquisition on the farmer level to know what they need to do, then that brings the difference.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. I think you've mentioned quite so much about the corporate industrial seed systems and also the farmer managed systems, and it would be very nice if you can share with us basically where do both of them complement each other?
Yeah, that's a good question. So like I said, seed begins the life for crops we consume or products that we have on the shelves. If today we went to the market, the closest market here would probably be in Mudurwa, and then you asked these traders where their managu came from. Some of them will tell you this one is from agriculture, this one is from ile kali, the traditional. If you go to the market, you'll find seed for both of them. This one is agriculture, aina si kali na ini kali. And that then defines where the two can work together. There are people who have sort of preferred for a long time the traditional varieties, and they keep them. They will keep the seed and plant it and repeatedly plant it, and their consumers will also prefer the same. But the complementary bit comes in when the consumer then desires a given product. If it's maize, there are people who only want that maize that is able to mature in time. When the maize matures, the top bit of the kernel should not open up and allow birds to start eating. Yeah, but now for the formal system to take that up, they have to look at the local varieties and improve them. There's always the farmer managed system contributing to an improvement process of the formal varieties, the modern varieties, so to speak. You will find a variety, for example, of vegetable is a very interesting place. For example, the traditional African vegetables, sageti, amaranth, you'll find they're always two levels. Kuna ile kali na ile ambayo si kali. Ile si kali, most times it's improved. It has been through a process, a formal process. So that in itself is a collaboration between the two sectors. The other thing would be adaptability to the environment. So while the research arm will try to improve a variety, they will always come back to the local farmer and ask them, okay, can you try this one and tell us, is it more susceptible to disease and pests? And then they'll say yes or no. And then that is feedback that helps when they're developing the next level variety, then they do it, to incorporate some of those attributes. So that for me is where the interface really comes in quite strongly.
As we wind up, I just want to pick one thing from you, because from the whole conversation, it seems farmer managed systems are really working for farmers.
Yes.
And yes. And these other corporate industrialized seed system might be working for a few farmers, but not majority of the farmers. So as a seed systems expert, which system do you think works well for our farmers, and which system is actually sustainable for our farmers?
I'll answer it in two ways so that you don't pin me on the wall. One, the fact that farmers are still able to access seed from the farmer-managed system or their own local system means that it's an important source of seed. It guarantees their access and their utilization of that seed. That said, the best way to approach this is, first of all, drive more integration between the two. Because while the local varieties are available, there are also improved varieties that could help farmers in terms of disease susceptibility or pest susceptibility. And personally, I feel like almost over, if something is over 60% in the majority, then it should be given the attention it deserves. So farmers should be allowed to actually select and use seed that they have, and without penalties and all those things. But on the other hand, if there are other farmers who, by virtue of their own belief in the productivity of the seed they get from the formal systems, decide they are able to make purchases and come and make purchases again after the next season, and it works for them, it guarantees their food security, nutrition, income, and all those things, then they should be allowed to utilize it. Overall, and as time goes by, I think the threat of climate change would be a very key distinguishing factor of those two systems. And it will make the farmer now decide, okay, the variety that I had used to do well, but now if it's not there for me to use, then it means I'm at problems. And again, if it's not there from the formal side of seed systems, then the threat of food insecurity is real. So personally, I would be convinced to see more integration of the systems, but more importantly, the sustainability aspect coming from, let's keep the local varieties. Let's not allow them to be eroded. And then at the end of the day, when these other ones cannot do well, then we all cry.
Oh, thank you so much, Noel.
You're welcome.
I feel like I'm from a class right now. Anyway, as we wind down, basically as we finish up, I just have one last question for you.
Sure.
Are GMOs really the solution to food insecurity?
I'll still refer to my previous point that I said. That question is very controversial. I'll have to say that first. Then the second bit is GMOs have taken a space in the global food system, different countries. But personally, I feel like the potential that has been availed by having local varieties and hybrid varieties has not been fully exploited. So if it were me trying to get hold of a new pair of shoes before checking out the other pair of shoes that have been, at my disposal, but since there's a new one that has come and I just want to put it on without trying these other ones first, I feel it will not be a fair experience of the technologies that are available. So in my opinion, I would rather let's explore the full potential of local varieties and hybrids. If they don't serve our food security, nutrition, and income security agenda, then that's when the move to GM could come. But as of now, I think there's too much available to utilize first, that if we utilize, I think the food security question will be answered.
Thank you so much for your insights, Noel, and thank you so much to our listeners for listening in. Santini sana, until next time.
Thank you.